Hello everyone, and you know what happened? I was teaching and I didn't know that I was live. That's why I always say, please, write something in chat box so I will know. Already I taught like 15 minutes, and then I found out that I didn't start actually. I didn't press the live button, right? So again, we're gonna have to go one more time on Byron. So let me first clear all this. Again, the same work is happening. Sorry for that. I hope you can hear me clearly. Now I have to clear everything. To that, I can do one thing. I'll just remove this page itself and add new one. So kind of 15 minutes I taught, and I just found out that you know I didn't press live button. Now we're gonna have to go one more time. But anyway, let's do it because already a rough work is there in our notes. So I just want to add one more time the new one. So let's go back. Beppo. Okay, so we're here. Okay, so Lord Byron is here. Let's start again. Anyway, Lord Byron, remember the date. He always comes in chronological order. So you should know that he was born in 1788 and died in 1824 by fever. Very important. So Lord Byron, actually his ancestor traced back from Norman conquest. Very important. Other you can just his father was a rake who married to Miss Gordon, and he actually you know inherited a Gordon name also, Lord Byron, right? And he spent his early years in Aberdeen. Very important. And what else you can remember? The Byronic temperament. Byronic means like picaresque is there, and also seduced by women, right? And the adventure, all these stuff elements are there in Byronic. Very important. And Byron was educated in Harrow and Cambridge. And what else you can remember here is that his poem travels made him what a famous overnight. So remember, once he said, I awoke one morning and found myself famous, when he published what Child Herald's uh, pilgrimage. And that is very important one, because they have asked question on it itself, right? So that's what you have to remember in his life. None other than that. You don't have to you know kind of spend more time on his life. As you know, when we explore the work, we will understand. Anyway, his poetry, first work, very important. House of Hours of Idleness. They usually ask question, and what else they ask in Hours of Idleness other than the first work is that it's a juvenile satire. Very important, right? And Byron also wrote the English Bard and Scotch Reviver, where it is only famous because he attacked Wordsworth and Coleridge there. And also he supported other like Shelley and Keats, all he supported there, right? So anyway, very these important, these both works are very important because they ask question. The third one is the Child Herald's pilgrimage, where they have asked question and on it. And recently they asked about, like, in which work Byron said that I awoke one morning and found myself famous. So that was the answer, right? And what else you can remember? Other work is The Prisoner of Shilan, that they ask question on it. Remember, if you want these notes, you can easily WhatsApp or Telegram me. I will share the notes and there itself. Otherwise, you can just join Telegram channel, and I'll say the process how to get these notes. Remember, Mazeppa, they have asked about it as it's a last metrical work. So when we make when you know uh, when we want to remember all these stuff, what we do, we usually make first work, last work, second last, and in the middle whatever the code is, right? So that formula we have to follow in order to uh, remember all these stuff. Okay, so as we were talking about Mazeppa, another important is Beppo. They have asked question because it is a Venetican story, so they have asked question on it. The vision of judgment was actually a kind of reply to Saudis, which work Saudis work a vision of judgment. So in exam you got question usually, you got this kind of question, and there are chances that you'll get again, right? So his drama are very important also, because recently they have asked about all these work: the Manfred, the Marino, Faliero, the two Foscari, Kane, deformed, transformed. So they have asked question. Remember, he has written all of this in blank verse, and these are all tragedies, very important, right? And major works, as you know, first work very important, this tag, Hours of Idleness. Second important work is English Bard and Scotch Reviver. What is important? Because it is the satire of Juvenal, right? The first satire of Juvenal, and it actually parodies it. So that's what you have to remember. Remember, he actually attacked Wordsworth and Coleridge, and he supported who? Pope and Dryden. Very important that you should know. Another one is child pilgrimage. Recently, you have got the question based on that. On this, I awoke one morning and found myself famous. And what else you can remember? That it has published in four cantos, but first two canto published in 1812. And when he said about why awoke one morning and found myself famous is in the 3rd March. So that day was the 3rd March 1812. Very important, and it is all about protagonist disillusionment of the life pleasure. He looks for distraction in foreign lands. So basically, all picturesque settings are there, and it reflects melancholy, disillusionment. And child means is what it terms about knighthood candidate, and the poem contribute to the Byronic hero, as I told you. The elements of it is like picaresque, mostly travel, adventure, you know women and all these stuff, right? And it influenced literature, music, and painting. And Harold wanders Europe expressing his feelings and ideas. Canto 1 in French slavery, remember, Canto 2 in Greece past, Canto 3 in Waterloo and the Rhine and Switzerland, and the Canto 5, which is very important, back to Italy. Right, and other work are also there that you can take a screenshot. Not important for you to remember, but if you remember the name, they might ask anyway. But they have asked from his poetry, and the couple of poetry that I told you, and also they have asked from the drama, very recent. So there are chances they might ask from it again, right? So The Prisoner of Shilan, very important, especially the date, and it is by Byron, very important narrative poem it is, in 392 lines, and written in 1816. Very important, and it chronicles the imprisonment of these two, a Jenny voice monk and Francois Bonivard. Very important that you should know these two characters and what actually happened, actually how he wrote it. Actually, they Byron with Shelley, they sailed on Lake Geneva, especially in 1816. And there, what happened? They were just touring, visiting that Caccio de Chillon, and there they stayed. They were also explored those dungeon, and there were that actually inspired this story. Boniver's story inspired Byron to write that. And due to rainfall, they actually both of them rested in Auchi after the tour, and Byron composed the extended fable in late June or July. Finally, it was published in 2nd July. So basically, it was about isolated figure enduring great suffering. And remember, what happened actually is that his father was burnt at his stake. The protagonist, his brother died all front of him, and two brothers died on the battlefield, another was burnt. So the narrator is the sole survivor of the family tragedy. Other work, The Dream, Prometheus and Darkness. Remember, they have asked question on Manfred, especially what it is, a closet drama. So they have asked it, and that all you have to remember here. And the Beppo is remember because of the Venetican story, and it was written in Venice in 1817. And Beppo is the they have asked question on Ottawa Rima, and we'll see the question anyway. Right, so that's all you have to remember. And remember what? The heroine, the story of Laura and husband Beppo. Okay, The Child Herald's Pilgrimage, the rest of the cantos published in 1818. Don Juan, which is very important work, and that actually kind of cement his legacy at the end. And Don Juan is a satirical poem. Again, Byronic elements are there, and Don Juan is a picaresque novel, but in verse form. Mostly what happened, this guy is seduced by women, not one but plenty. I'll tell you when we talk about the poem. Anyway, it is written in Ottawa Rima with 6 cantos. They usually ask question on it. Also, remember, first two canto published in 1819, and it was actually criticized for immorals. So he got a lot of criticism, you know from these cantos. And the narrative spans total 16,000 lines, and 17 cantos, total 17 cantos are there. And Ottawa Rima uses a couplet rhyme scheme of humor. So again, it is written in couplet rhyme scheme. Okay, so what else? It starts like Don Juan grows up in Spain, right? And when his father died, he inherited a lot of fortune, and his mother educates and shields him from other, life. And he was a kind of innocent guy, according to the poem. And but he did a lot of stuff, like he had an affair with Julia. When they found, Julia's husband found about that he was sleeping in his room with his wife, he kind of exiled him, and he exiled, and he end up where another, in a wreck Mediterranean Sea. And there, what happened in that Mediterranean Sea, his ship got wrecked, and he was the only survivor. Then Heidi, he found another woman, a beautiful woman, and he actually got rescued. And this Heidi falls in love with Don Juan. So when Don Juan's father found it, no, Heidi's father found it about this relationship, what happened? He sells Don to into slavery, and and there what happened? A Turkish princess buys him as a sex slave, and Don Juan escapes when the Russian attack the Turk, and he becomes a kind of Russian war hero. And there he itself, another woman, Catherine the Great, falls in love with Don Juan. So many things are happening, right? And Catherine rewards him and sends him to England as ambassador there himself. And then there itself he found another woman. So total, lots of women, somewhere around 5 to 6 women that he was seduced by, right? And Saudi, as you know, and it was actually dedicated to uh, Robert Saudi, because he was a rival, right? and Southey was the poet laureate, as you know, at that time. And in stanza say, he said, "You Bob." So that Bob represents Saudi. They have asked question on it. So very important. And Mazeppa, another a long narrative poem about 17th century military leader of Ukraine, that you should know. And fragment of novel, very important because it is the first vampire horror story by another by Lord Byron. Another name is a fragment, the burial of fragment. uh, then we have some other plays like tragedy drama here, Sardane Palace, and the two Foscari. They have asked, and the Cane. They have asked the name of these plays. Recent exam. Right, so it's very important that you should know. And the Vision of Judgment, very important. It was dedicated, actually, it was a reply, Saudis, which one? A Vision of Judgment. So these two you have to remember because they ask question on it, right? To remember all of his work, we have the quote: Byron's last hours idleness is spent on singing about English bard, where he actually supported Pope and Dryden and criticized Wordsworth and Coleridge, right? So that you have to remember in this English bard, right? And that Child Herald who was a prisoner of Ceylon. So this code you should know. And the second code is Manfred the Child, known as Don Juan Mazeppa, who had the vision of Saudi. So these code, if you remember, if you want to take a screenshot, you can pause the video and take a screenshot right now, right? Anyway, some of the poem that they have asked question about it: She Walks in Beauty. They have asked question. It's a short lyrical poem and published in 1814, and it is one of the finest poem by Byron. And it is actually a real life event happened back in a party in London, and where he saw a woman whose name was Miss Anne Beatrice Wilmot, and she was kind of famous for her beauty, and that actually struck Byron at the event. And the poem was written in following day after the party, because maybe he was trying to impress her, I guess. And she inspired Byron's unfinished epic poem about Gate. Also, Gate was a personal hero of Byron's, as you know, and Byron's referred to this unpublished work as his magnum opus, like his masterpiece, and switched Gate's gender using his cousin's description. So all the lines are also important. Let me read it for you. Right? She walks in beauty like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspects and her eyes. Right? Thus mellowed to that tender light which heaven to gaudy day denies. So usually what kind of question you get, because she was in a dress which has this cloudless climes and starry night. Usually um, it was, I think, blue color, her dress, in real party. So one shade the more on ray, the less half, had half impaired the nameless grace which waves in every raven tree's dress, or softly lightens over her face, and where thoughts suddenly sweet express how pure, how dear that dwelling place. So all these are important that you should know. Anyway, again, they have recently asked about this poem, When We Two Parted, another important poem, and it actually describes the pain and disillusionment. So you should know. They have asked this poem, the name of the poem in exam. It was actually the match the following kind of question. And when we two parted in silence and tears. This whole poem, you can just read it when you get time. Anyway, let's move to the question right now. It's time for us to, uh, read the poem. Sorry, solve the PYQs. So, which among the following writers once remarked that I awoke one morning and found myself famous? Easy, Lord Byron. Recent question. Of where in the Child Herald's pilgrimage? Question again, who among the following wrote Mazeppa? Easy to answer, Lord Byron. Who is the author of a fragment? As I told you, a burial, fragment, all these. First vampire story, remember, Lord Byron. Choose the plays written by Lord Byron. Vejas, Sarda Penelas, Cain, Two Foscari. Remember all this. So 1, 2, and 3. A, C, and we have D. A, C, D. Answer correct. Right, another question. Arrange the chronological sequence of the publication of the following text. So it asks about September, so definitely at the end. The caller, Beppo, Paradise Lost, Seeing Things. So Paradise Lost should be, the caller should be the first because it's Caroline era, right? Especially by Herbert, remember that. So B, then Paradise Lost, somewhere 71 or 67, so that you have to know. D, and September. A, then we have Beppo, actually C is Beppo, then we have A, September, and the Seeing Things, which is recent. So that kind of question you usually get. They have asked question on She Walks in Beauty is a poem by Lord Byron, but composed in 1814. Very these two, because Byron died in 24, so definitely not before. When he was alive he published. This is completely nonsense for you, and these are too close call. So if you remember well, it is 1814. Right, again another question. As I told you, Lord Byron wrote what? The Vision of Judgment. Right. Oliver Goldsmith, The Deserted Village. Anne Radcliffe, very important, The Romance of the Forest. Swinburne, The Sisters, right? Okay, now we'll talk about P.B. Shelley. So in Shelley, what you should know that uh, his life span. Remember, 1824 Byron died, right? 1821 is who died? Keats. 1822 our Shelley. So all of them are very near somewhere, right? So Shelley was born in Sussex, you should know, educated at Eton and Oxford, right? And his pamphlet The Necessity of Atheism got him expelled, very important. They have asked question on it. And his development of extreme ideas from that itself started with religion, politics, and morality. And despite his idea, he was unselfish and amiable by nature, and he had also unhappy marriage. And the Examiner, he founded by Leigh Hunt and John Hunt, he actually worked there. He was one of the contributor, like Shelley, Keats, and Hazlitt. They have asked question on it. And Shelley devoted himself writing and kind of wandering freely with who? Byron, usually, right? He remarried to who? Mary Godwin, William Godwin's daughter, later known as Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein. Right, and Italy inspired Shelley's genius and creativity. So that was all about his life, right? And his kind of was, you know, drowned. Shelley drowned in sudden squall at age 30. So while he was sailing to Italy, what happened? He kind of drowned, and his body was burned on the beach where it was found, and his ashes were laid beside Keats in Rome. As you know, his early death was a great loss to literature. If he would have lived like 10 more years, then you would have got a lot of work, right? Especially same happens with Keats and Byron. Anyway, original poetry, some poems that you should know, but from Queen Mab, they have asked question. Alastair, they have asked question. Mount Blanc, Mutability, Hymn to Intellectual Beauty, they usually ask question. And the Revolt of Islam, Ozymandias, all these poems are important. Ode to the West Wind, The Mask of Anarchy, To a Skylark, The Witch of Atlas, and Adonis. And you might be wondering how I can remember all these, right? For that, we recently asked question of life. They have started asking from it, so it's very important that you should know that this work is written by who? Our Shelley. And drama, they have asked about drama, the Cenci and the Hellas. And very important, just Rossi, they have asked question on it, because as you know they were walking, right? And Mary Shelley, Byron, Shelley, and they were walking and they're talking about the ghost and horror story, and there they decided who writes the best horror story, right? So who won it eventually? Our Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein, Shelley wrote Jastrozi, and Byron wrote what? Fragment, right? The necessity of atheism, first work, very important. Because of that he got expelled from the college. On the vegetable system of diet, they recently asked on this question, I don't know why, but you should know. A defense of poetry, anyway, that we'll talk about in a romantic criticism, right? Some chapbook is also written, translation is also there, a lot of things. So to remember his work, Jesse Nessie, matlab Jastrosi Nessie is necessity, vegetable. They grow vegetable in Mabalaster. You can make it as Malabar, I guess, to remember well, right? Okay, quote to beautiful Mumtaj means Queen Mab, beautiful. Islamabad is Ozymandias Chenchi in the West Wind. So you will remember. Quote 3 is a skylark mask in the play Prometheus. So Skylark uses mask in the play Prometheus. So to a skylark, the mask of anarchy, the Prometheus unbound. You can take a screenshot. And uh, the other later work, the Witch of Atlas, right? The Witch and Atlas defend that poetry, triumph of poetry against Hellas. So all these through the code you can remember all the work in order, right? So let's talk about his poems. So Just Rosie, a romance in Gothic novel. As I told you, when they were taking a walk, they wrote this. The necessity of atheism, very important, 1811, because of that he got expelled. Queen Mab, 1813, 9 cantos with 17 notes. It is the first large poetic work by Shelley. On the vegetable of system, another work. Alastair or the spirit of solitude. They ask question on the subtitle, the spirit of, and there what Alastair is means, evil genius. Remember the date, 1814, sorry 1815, very important. And the poem had no title when Shelley passed it to Peacock. Total 720 lines, and it usually considered the major work. Mount Blanc, which was published in 1817, Mutability, very important. It actually appeared with Alastair, very important. And 8 lines from Mutability actually quoted in where? Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And that's line was, we rest, a dream has power to poison sleep, we rise, one wandering thought pollute the day, very important. And Hymn to Intellectual Beauty, what you should know, the date 1817, written during the summer, while Percy and Mary Shelley stayed with Byron. Location, remember, near the Geneva, Lake Geneva. And the Revolt of Islam was published in 1817. Ozymandias, it's a sonnet, and it was published in the Examiner. And the Chenchi, that is very important, and you get a lot of question from the Chenchi, and that trend is, it's been now like 10-15 years they have been asking from the Chenchi. Remember, verse drama, 5 acts, that also can be a closer drama because it is in verse, right? And the story centers on Count Francesco Cenci, known as Depravity. He throws a party, okay, so there is a party, announces the death of two sons. His daughter Beatrice is another victim of his cruelty. Beatrice seeks help from Orsino, a priest she once loved. Orsino and the Cenci family plot to murder the Count. The conspirators are discovered and Orsino evades capture. The rest of the you know, conspirators, what happened, are tried and executed. And the story highlights family tragedy and betrayal. Ode to West Wind, very important, published in 1819. And here how the novel starts and how the speaker invokes wild west wind, www, right, to hear him. The wind is called as the destroyer and preserver. They have asked question, it stays what, storm the dying year. And the wind moves to Mediterranean and cleaves to the Atlantic. Leaf of cloud, another uh, you know wishes that his speaker carried out, and he pleads to be like a wave, leaf, or cloud. And what else he said? Make me thy lyre, right? And he asked the wind to scatter his words across the mankind. The speaker concludes, if winter comes, can a spring be far ahead? Remember, this line is from the Ode to the West Wind. Then is The Mask of Anarchy. Remember the date. It's a political novel about the Peterloo massacre. They have asked question on it. To a Skylark, what is important that he said, opening line, hail to thee, Balidi spirit. They have asked it. And that To a Skylark is actually published with Prometheus Unbound. Right, that's what you have to remember. And The Skylark is not only written by Shelley but also by John Clare. The Skylark, Matthew Arnold, the scholar Gypsy, and P.B. Shelley, To Skylark, Christina Rossetti, To Skylark. Right. And Prometheus Unbound is there, very important, for lyrical drama, and it is a closet drama. Prometheus, as you know, is what? He defies the god because he gives fire to the humanity, and Zeus was not happy with it, and he gave what? Eternal punishment to him. That's the Prometheus Unbound. The Witch of Atlas, remember the date, it's a work and published in 1825. Adonis is very important because it is a pastoral elegy. Full title is an elegy on the death of John Keats, author of Endymion Hyperion. Very important that it was dedicated to uh, who? Our John Keats. So the speaker weeps for Adonis, god of beauty and desire. Adonis dies due to jealousy, and poets mourn his loss. So Urania, his mother, is called the mourn at his deathbed. So that's all you have to remember in Adonis. A Defense of Poetry, remember 1821, published but later 1840, written in 1821. That will all discuss when we talk about romantic criticism. So wait for that lecture, right? Hellas, it is a verse drama. They have asked on it. The Triumph of Life, it's a kind of trend now in UGC net. They're asking a lot of things about him, like it is the last major work. Right, the Triumph of Life consists total 5 8. Actually, they didn't ask any deep question. They have asked the last major work, unfinished thing, that term they have asked. in your exam. PB Shelley questions are there. Usually you get from the defense of poetry, that anyway we'll talk about when we talk about what romantic criticism. So anyway, question. Let's solve some questions from Shelley that they have asked in your exam. PB Shelley, Adonis laments the death of who? Adonis. Remember? Keats. Right? Another question: who among the following was not associated with the school of poetry? Right? Cockney school of poetry. Cockney mostly were. So we have Keats, Shelley, Hunt. So William Blake is not there. Right. Match the list with the following work. As you know, Keats wrote a Song of Experience. Let's find out the easy one first. Uh, William Wordsworth, The Excursion, very important. P.B. Shelley, Alesta, and John Keats comic. Okay. Which two of the following poets defended poetry against Plato? Very easy to answer. Philip Sidney, P.B. Shelley. Okay. And again, another question: who among the following compared the mind in creation a fading coal? Shelley. When we talk about defense of poetry, we will find this there. Which among the following is an incomplete poem of? Again, as I told you, it's a kind of trend now that they're asking about the triumph of life. Okay, next question is: what identify the poem term pastoral? Pastoral, as you know, the setting is shepherd, sheep, you know, villages, all this stuff is there. So where you can find it? Pastoral elegy. So elegy will be there in that. We have Lycidas, right, with Keats, Lycidas by Milton, and then we have C, Adonis. It was dedicated to who? Our Keats. Yes, right. We have Thyresis by Matthew Arnold. Easy to answer, not very complicated question. Another J.S. Ellis Mena, one of the leading exponent of deconstruction, does a deconstructionist reading of which of the following poems of P.B. Shelley? And it was what? Again, the question is, answer is The Triumph of Life. Who among the following character personifies necessity in P.B. Shelley's Prometheus Unbound? Characters, right? So we have Demogorgon. Okay, another work, Plato, as you know, is by Symposium, Aristotle Rhetoric, P.B. Shelley Defense of Poesy, Sydney Apology for Poetry. Easy to answer, not complication. Again, arrange the following in chronological order. So, order to chronology, what we can see here: Leviathan, Thomas Brown, Anatomy of Criticism is the first, then Leviathan is there, and then we have Walter Pater, Study of Poetry, because again it's in uh, 19th century, 20th century, I guess. And P.B. Shelley, Defense of Poesy, should be first. So first is Brown, second is our Thomas Hobbes Leviathan, and then Defense of Poesy. Then we have Walter Pater, sorry, Matthew Arnold's Culture, and this is 20th century for Walter Pater's studies in the poetry, right? Another, which of the following works is not written by P.B. Shelley? Written, right? The Mask of Anarchy, Queen Mab is written. The Revolt of us, Islam, The Vision of Judgment Easy. It is by Byron. And if they have asked so this is here is mentioned as A Vision of Judgment is by Robert Southey. The Vision of Judgment is by Byron. Who among the following has composed the lyrical drama Hellas? Just read it. P.B. Shelley. Which among the following poems has not been composed by P.B. Shelley? Not composed by. Mutability is by him. Hymn to Intellectual Beauty is by him. To Wordsworth is by him. But When We Two Parted is by what? Who? Byron. Hymn to Intellectual Beauty is also. Now next is John Keats. What's time now? 39. What we can do right now? We'll just let's see how much is it. Ode to Melancholy. I guess session tomorrow because I already like 15 minutes I did the session without, I didn't realize that the live button is not on. So John Keats, guys, I will talk about him tomorrow. So thank you so much and have a good day. Bye bye.